to be a radical change.
Hi, I'm Jack Johnson.
How you doing, Jack?
Nice to meet you. Good. I miss you in the morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I miss it too. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
You know me?
All right, I see your name tag. How you doing?
Oh, I was about to say.
Yeah, it's all right. Good to see you.
It's great to have you in Pemberton.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You ever going to go back, Bill?
Well, let's hope not.
I mean, like, you got your.
Well, let's just say,
Future ahead of you
let's
now.
look at the next 4 years and say not before then.
Oh,
Not
right.
before then,
Oh,
right?
Hopefully not.
Yeah,
Hopefully not.
I will tell you this. I told Mayor Scott this. I'll do Ask the Governor on day one. We'll do that every week. Because
that's
you need an accessible chief executive.
Yeah,
You can't, this guy, Murphy doesn't talk to 1015, doesn't do anything. Totally inaccessible. It's sad.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
He's a bad guy.
I hope you do something about the foreign.
We have a plan for car insurance. One of the big problems with car insurance is that the premiums are higher for people that don't graduate college. You know that? So if you're a high school diploma versus a college degree, you're going to pay higher insurance rates. They're allowed to discriminate based on education and income. It's not right.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm the only candidate that
They
signed a
do
pledge
that
to
for
eliminate that.
Widows. When my husband passed away, my insurance went up.
Why not? It's not right. Why? Did you get into an accident? Did you have a ticket? No. Your life status changed, and they're allowed to jack your rates up. I'm going to sign an executive order in those first 3 months to stop that from happening.
I'm going to get a picture.
Yeah, let's
New
do it.
with me. My wife wants one.
You want me to hold the camera for you?
Yeah. You want to hold the camera?
That would even be
There you
better.
go.
I need one like my morning guy who ditched me.
Oh, no. That's...
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I hope to see you more.
I hope so, too.
Thank you.
Ready to corral everybody over and get started?
Mr. Spady, I just have one.
Sure.
I'm a criminal justice major at RCBC.
Yeah.
What do you plan to do if you're elected governor to make our correctional institutions, or in other words, our prisons?
Well, first, we're going to empower our corrections officers, and we're going to reinstate anyone fired during COVID with back pay. Number two, we're not going to apply rules to the corrections officers that we don't apply to the inmates. How is it possible the COs had to wear a mask, had to take a jab? None of that applied to the perps in there. Plus, the other thing, and this is big, the rules of engagement have to change. This idea that any criminal behind bars can throw any accusation at a CO with unfounded, without any evidence, and that CO is the one that gets suspended pending some investigation is outrageous. We are empowering criminals in this state. I'm going to empower corrections officers and law enforcement.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Right?
How do you
We're ready.
plan to make our prisons safe for the correctional officers?
Well, we have to hire more, number one. We have to make sure that we are restricting movement where appropriate. When we have dangerous criminals, we're going to end up filling up our prisons and stop bail reform, and we're going to isolate and separate those dangerous criminals from the rest of the population. We've got to consider our safety of our COs first. That's the number one priority. And then we got to consider that we have to keep other inmates safe as well. So this idea that we have this movement against solitary confinement, against separation, why? What's going to keep our prisons safer? Does it mean separating and isolating and putting real bad criminals in solitary confinement? Then I'm all for it.
Wow. Another great answer.
Good to talk to you.
Have a good one, man.
See you in a minute.
How
you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you. Everything good?
Well, I'm actually, my dad's house. And I have a house.
Bill SPADEA showed up. I got a few questions in, so I don't have to ask them over there.
You didn't beat him up, did you?
No, I asked him some great questions. I asked him how we plan on making our correctional officers safer in our correctional institutions. Yeah, gave some great answers.
You got to ask them when you got to give the state employees a raise. You got to retire. They haven't had a. Well, my wife's retired, so they would have a lot of money after that.
That'd be a good question for you to ask.
You'd have to come here.
Don't worry, we'll wheel you over there.
I personally think they need to thin the herd a little bit up there.
Hey, pretty good.
Pardon? Yeah. Columbo.
How many meetings have you come to since the new council's come?
Probably 50.
Well, I've been trying to hit almost every one, but it doesn't always happen. Because my work schedule is at the beginning of my wife passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so she had been sick like all 2024. I worked from all their elections to get her.
Well, we look forward to seeing you come back to the meetings, and
I'm there, I usually sit like right back. I'm the quiet place. Believe it or not, sometimes I can't get a chance to come up. But so I figured if I can't get up there, means I wasn't meant to speak. Because usually I get into trouble if I say something. When you get to a certain age, you lose your edge.
Dan hasn't lost his edge yet.
Jody SPADEA.
We'll see you over there.
I'm saying, we listen to her.
I also want to thank the members of my Pinelands Republican Club and the members of Pemberton Republican Club who were instrumental in putting all this together for everyone.
Ma'am, would you be able to hold this real
So
quick?
if anybody here is
Sure.
not registered to vote or needs an affiliation change, please go back to the tables back under the awning over there. We have both kinds of forms.
Pretty fancy.
I bought it from
I
Target.
just want to say that I'm glad to see so many people have had enough of the establishment in this state, because it's not getting better. And until we come out and say enough is enough, it won't. This primary, we have got to come out in numbers with all the energy we can. I want to see lots of people with their flags up every day till the election. Bug your neighbors, bug your friends, bug your kids, get them all registered to vote. This is the year we can turn New Jersey red. So we're going to start out, of course, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Timothy, you want to come up? We'll have some of our young guys. So can everybody stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now I have our mayor here from Chemung, who's running for re-election for those of you who are from Chemung. He's going to lead our opening prayer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. God Almighty, we come before you with humble hearts, asking for your blessing upon the land that we call home. God bless America. God bless Donald Trump and all of the leaders in his candidacy. Guide her with leaders with wisdom, fill America's people with compassion, and root her deeply in truth and righteousness. Today, we gather for this rally. We pray for every person present. May hearts be united in peace, minds be open to truth, and voices be lifted in hope. Grant safety, courage, and clarity of purpose to all those who speak, listen, and act today. Lord, we also cry out for justice. Where there is brokenness, bring healing. Where there is oppression, bring freedom. Where there is injustice, Let your righteousness roll like a mighty river. Empower us to be instruments of your peace, to stand firm in love and speak boldly with grace, and to work faithfully towards a more just and compassionate society. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mike. So, who did everybody come to see today? Bill SPADEA. Does anybody see Bill out there? So maybe we need to start a chant to get him out here. What do you think?
Let's go, Bill!
SPADEA! 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 SPADEA!
Let's go, Bill! We need you, Bill! Let's go, Bill!
Hey, Jody, where's your husband?
Bill! Hurry up! I hear this. I think I should have had a longer prayer.
Yeah, you should have had a longer prayer. No, I'm not singing.
Thank God. Oh.
Get started and we'll sing with you.
You guys are going to get run over, you two. Hey, look what I see. I spy. Don't wait for the line. Come on. And our most special guest of the evening, here he is, Bill SPADEA, our next governor.
Heather, thanks. Let's hear it for Heather. Wow, what a great crowd. What a great night. What a great farm. You know, isn't it about time we protect our family farms in this state? Right? Isn't it about time we restore some common sense to our government? Absolutely. How many of you listen to me on the radio? All right. Well, thank you. So listen, if you missed the show, don't vote against me to get me back on the radio. All right, please. We got a state to fix. We've got a party to fix. We've got to get this state back on track. It's a total disaster. And you know, I tell people, the two problems that we have in New Jersey, number one, woke Democrats who think they ought to run your business. They think they ought to raise your kids. They think they know and they ought to decide what medicine you take, what shots you take, right? Government says that. These are the woke Democrats. They think that gender is fluid. What does that even mean? Come on. But the bigger problem are the woke Republicans who let them do it. That's the problem. Our fight is your fight. And your fight is a fight to restore common sense so that we actually can get back to a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Our government's not for us anymore. You know, I've been on the air, as you know, last 10 years, 12 years if you count my show on Chasing News that was on Fox TV for 7 years. And all this time I've been listening to New Jerseyans who are upset every day because
the cost of living in New Jersey has gotten out of control. You know, I tell this story. My wife Jody is here. Jody is in the back here. She and I have been married 30 years. And you know, we talk about, we chose New Jersey. Now, I was born and raised in Jersey. I'm a South Jersey guy, born in Camden, grew up in Cherry Hill. I love South Jersey. I think South Jersey gets the short end of the stick with these Trenton politicians, don't you think? All right, let these Trenton Northern politicians come down and see what a real farm looks like, what a real community looks like. Right? Yeah, well, there's an idea. There's an idea. But really, you know, Jody and I have been married 30 years. When I'm from New Jersey, she's from Rhode Island. But we chose Jersey to raise our kids, build our family, dig our roots, and build that foundation for the future. And it's getting harder and harder and harder for us and everyone across this state. When I was a kid, I grew up going to Sunday dinner at my great-grandmother's house. Anybody else? Great-grandma had the Sunday gravy. Okay, now that's a point of contention in my house. Although we chose New Jersey, Jody still insists it's sauce. So we're just gonna let it go. We're gonna let that go. But think about it. 4 generations of SPADEAs under one roof, one small house in Westmont, New Jersey. Today, Grandma and Grandpa can't afford to stay here. Kids are taking the grandkids 3, 4, 5 states away, moving to Texas, South Carolina. And instead of seeing your grandparents and those generational family dinners, instead of having that every Sunday, you're lucky to see your kids and grandkids once or twice a year at the holidays. That is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Now, I am here to tell you, I served in the Marine Corps. I've started businesses. Thank you. Let's hear it for all the veterans who are here. Put your hands up. Where are our veterans? God bless our vets. God bless our veterans. How about law enforcement? Got any cops here? All right, let's hear it for our police officers, our corrections officers. How about our nurses and teachers? Right? Nurses and teachers get a rough hand when it comes to New Jersey. Now let me say this. How many of you have seen some ads or maybe gotten a mailer or two about just how bad I am? Anybody? All right, did anybody bring any of the mailers? All right, next time do it, because I carry around a Sharpie. I sign them. And we're going to use them for confetti on election night when we win on June 10th. All right? Now, what is in those ads? First of all, who got the one where I'm hunched over like a troll under a bridge? Did you see that one? I said to Jody, where the hell was I that I took that picture? So here's the thing. My opponent, because I know there are a couple other guys running, but really it's a 2-man race. Between me and Jack Chitterelli, who's been running for 9 years. Guy's been running for governor for 9 years. He has spent $25 million over 9 years running for governor. And do you know, him and his PACs have spent almost $5 million in the past 5 months doing what? Lying about me. You probably came here if you had questions and said, how did that guy, I think he supports illegal aliens. No, not true. But there's an ad that says I do. You know why? Because I did say the words 8 years ago on TV. I said there ought to be a pathway to citizenship. You know what they cut out of that ad? The question I was asked. I was asked, if someone comes here legally, and they're here legally for 15 years, they've got a wife and 2 kids in the school, never committed a crime, not even a parking ticket, but they ran afoul of our broken legal system and didn't get their visa renewed right away, should they be allowed to stay and have a pathway? And I said yes. And you know who agrees with me? Donald Trump. And it's really sickening that the guy I'm running against would stoop so low as to lie about that. But you want to know why? Because he supports driver's licenses for illegals. Jack Chitterelli supports driver's licenses for illegals. I'll go a step further. Chitterelli supports your tax dollars paying for illegal aliens to go to college with in-state tuition. That's your... Well, I'm glad you said that. So does Murphy. Matter of fact, my opponent, Jack Ciancarelli, lines up more with the 6 Democrats running than he certainly does with Donald Trump. But really, to be fair to my opponent, we're going to have to give him another name. I'm going to tell you why. Because Fox News exposed last week that my opponent invests in communist Chinese companies that are buying up American farmland. So here's my question to you. What do you like better? China Jack or Jack Ciancarelli? I don't know. I'm going to try it a couple times tonight. You let me know. The best reaction I get is what we'll stick with. Ciancarelli, huh? I don't know. China Jack is simpler for a sign. I'm just saying. So the point is, how do we have a Republican nominee who supports communist Chinese companies buying American farmland? How do we have a former nominee and a guy that wants your vote for governor who supports giving away your tax dollars to illegals? How do we support that? When I say weak Republicans, I'm talking about Jack Ciancarelli. That's who I'm talking about. And I'm running for governor to change all that. Because despite the out of context lies, I'm the only candidate running for governor that's had a conversation with Tom Homan about how we are going to secure New Jersey's borders. We're going to secure our borders. We're going to mobilize state police assets and the National Guard and work hand in hand with Homeland Security to end illegal immigration in New Jersey. We're going to end it. And then let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to empower our kids in middle school and high school to start taking up the trades, to learn agriculture, plumbing, electricity, all these things. Why are we forcing these kids to feel like they all have to go to college and have a 6-figure debt with no job? It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. We're going to change that. We only have 200,000 manufacturing jobs left in New Jersey. My goal in the first 2 years is to double that number. We need to start making things in New Jersey. This tractor, what'd you say, 1960? 1964. American parts. Right now, you buy a new tractor today, where are your parts coming from? China. China Jack knows all about that. We're going to change that and start building things in New Jersey again. We need to invigorate our family farms. We need to have our family farms supplying food to our schools, our hospitals, our prisons. We need to stand up for our cops and our firefighters and our teachers. We've got to end this corruption of the elites in the back room who are owned by the lobbyists and the insiders and the lawyers. I've had enough of it. There are too many lawyers. But when I think about this, how do you all feel about men using women's bathrooms? All right, you want to know how China Jack feels about it? He voted so that mentally ill men can go back and change their birth certificates to be a woman for the purpose of using women's facilities. Think about that for a minute. Guys, we lost in 2021, didn't we? No. We didn't lose. China Jack lost. We lost because we got stuck with 4 more years of Phil Murphy. And you know what? There were 2 elections that year. There was one in Virginia, one in New Jersey. And what happened in Virginia? Glenn Youngkin got elected governor. He's a great governor, strong governor, man that stands up for cops and firefighters, teachers, nurses, and parental rights. And what happened here? Phil Murphy got 4 more years, stuck it to all of us. But let me tell you the difference. In Virginia, 6 out of 10 voters turned out to vote. In New Jersey, 6 out of 10 stayed home. That's the difference. New Jersey only lost with the Trump election this time by what, 5.5 points? New Jersey's, and how many illegals voted in that election? I'll bet it was a lot closer if you take out the illegals. And how many of those illegals signed up to vote because they got a driver's license that my Republican opponent supports? Think about that for a minute. So we're going to do a couple things. I know we're going to take some questions tonight. I just want you to know that I stand with you, that I'm tired of the overdevelopment. We're going to stop phase 4 of high density housing.
We're going to empower our farmers and stop all this mad development with warehouse after warehouse. Stop with the warehouses storing Chinese products. How about we build manufacturing plants again? We're going to get your energy costs down by focusing on natural gas and nuclear. We're going to get your insurance costs down by stopping the discrimination that happens right now based on education. You want to go to college, you pay more. That's not right. That's not right. You become a widow, you pay more. That's not right. You know, right now, my wife and I are paying $6,000 for our car insurance. $6,000 a year. And I haven't had a ticket in like 2 months. So the point is, it's outrageous. And someone's got to do something about it. We're spending $7 billion on illegal aliens. That's going to end on day one. Right? We're spending $6.2 billion on Medicaid payments, and we don't know how much is going to illegals. A third of it? How much is fraud and abuse? Yet we can't get local doctors to stay in New Jersey because taxes are too high. Insurance costs are too high. The regulations are too high. We can't get roads paved in this state. It takes 7 years to get a new road project approved. That's why it costs $2 million a mile. We're going to fix that. We're going to put our skilled trades back to work. We're going to have the jobs that are being done by illegals done by Americans, because we are going to refocus our high schools and our middle schools. We need to start promoting our families and empowering mom and dad. I'm going to end the flu shot mandate on day one. No one should be forced to take a shot against their will. No one. But we're going to start making medicine again. We don't have to hate Big Pharma. We just got to get them under control. It's the government that's the problem, not the innovators, not the entrepreneurs. We need to stop your tax money from being wasted on failed public schools in Newark and Trenton and Camden and Irvington and Patterson. I had a debate the other day. Not a debate, it was more of a candidate forum. I got invited with all the candidates, and I'm on stage. It was the Diversity Chamber of Commerce. And they invited us, and I went, and it was in Newark. And the question was all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they go down the row of all the candidates. Now, every once in a while I get lucky and I get to go last. So they go to John Bramnick, and he's all for DEI and procurement, etc., because John is a liberal. Now, to be fair, John Bramnick is going to be part of our bringing this party back together. He's a friend of mine. He is not pro-Trump. I know. He's a problem. He's also only going to get 5 or 6 points in the polls, and that's okay. That's okay. Because we're going to bring him in because he does know how government works. And the one thing I'll say about John Bramnick, he's honest. I can't say that about the other guy. China Jack will tell you whatever you want to hear to take your money and take your vote. He doesn't care about lying. He's been lying about me for 5 months. There's no problem with it. So they go down the line. They get to Chinarelli. And he says, they asked him about DEI, and he said, well, we need to expand diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we need to add LGBTQ to our government procurement. Think about that. This is a Republican candidate for governor. Now they get to me. After all the Democrats said the same thing, and the crowd's cheering and they're happy, and they say, well, Mr. SPADEA, how do you feel? And what are you going to do to expand DEI when you're governor? And I said, well, I'm going to sign an executive order on day one, and I'm going to end DEI in all government contracts and hiring. Now, I did not get that reaction that day. Ross Baraka stands up and points at me, said, you are a racist and a fascist. And I looked at him and I said, Ross, I got to tell you, I'm praying every day you're the nominee. Please, God, let that happen. Here's the interesting part of that story. Number one, of course, I told the truth, because I've always told the truth, and you know that I've been on the air for 12 years, 10 years, just on the radio. I've told the truth. Wasn't always popular. I was one of the first voices to come out against the COVID jab, against the mandates. I was saying it back in January of 2020, 3 months before we locked down, because we saw what was happening. I knew the government was up to something really nasty, and we saw it happen. So anyway, we get to the end now. It's 2 hours, and we're at the DEI conference, and they end it, and we all get up, and a guy comes to the back, and he opens the back door to the stage, and he says, all right, all the candidates are going to file out this way. And I said, I want to go that way. And I tapped the security guard at the front of the stage. I said, I want to use that door, the back of the theater. He said, Mr. SPADEA, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not so sure you're very popular here. And I said, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. So I walk down, and I get stopped immediately. 4 high school students, black high school students from Newark. And they said, sir, we wanted to tell you 2 things. Number 1, we can't believe you said all that up there. And number 2, we agree with everything you said. Now think about that for a minute, because checking a box based on someone's skin color does not empower our minority community. How about 9 out of 10 children in Newark, New Jersey can't function at grade level? 9 out of 10. And you know what your share of the Newark school budget is? $1.1 billion. And almost every one of those kids can't do math at grade level. This is a civil rights crisis. You know what you can't do in Newark? You know what's hard to do in Newark? Start a business, get a job, walk to school without the gangs and the drugs and everything else. And all due respect to Ross Baraka, who wants to take his failed Newark and take it statewide, we're not going to let him do it. We're not going to let him do it because there's too much on the line. And what do the community members in Newark, black and brown, want? They want jobs. They want public safety. They want clean water. They want energy and transportation. That's what they want. They deserve a quality of life like we have in the suburbs. Don't take the failed city models and ruin our suburbs and rural communities. How about we take the successful models in the suburbs and the rural communities and fix our damn cities? That's what we ought to be doing. And as governor, I'm going to do that. And let me tell you how. Too many politicians will tell you what you want to hear. You know what you want to hear? Yeah, we're going to fix it all, we're going to lower your taxes while we're doing it. Well, they're all lying. You know why? Because Jack Cianarelli has been in politics for 35 years. John Bramnick has been in politics for 35 years. So why haven't they fixed it yet? They've had the power. I'll tell you a quick story, and then I want to get to questions, but I want to tell you this. So the Salem nuclear plant, we're all familiar. You got 3 nuclear reactors, right? Everybody that talks about energy will tell you, oh, we got to have more nuclear power. I'm a believer in nuclear power. All good. Here's what everybody else knows, though. It takes you 10 years to build a nuclear reactor, 10 years. So from today, in 2036, we'll be able to get a couple of new reactors online if I win. That's good news. However, my opponent, about a week ago, tweeted out a picture. There he was, looking all smart in his suit, touring the Salem nuclear plant. And he tweeted out on X, he said, when I'm governor, we're going to focus on nuclear power and I'm going to get your rates lowered. Now, here's the funny thing. And it was a great opportunity for me. I was able to go back into the archives and I found 10 years ago, I toured the Salem nuclear plant and I wrote an article and I advocated it on my show on Fox TV and on the radio. And I called on the legislature at the time, said, guys, end the wind subsidies, end the solar subsidies, and build these reactors. And I said, Jack, all due respect, you were in the legislature, but you ignored it because you didn't care then and you don't care now. You'll tell anybody anything they want to hear to get a vote. And I said, had you listened to me 10 years ago, we would have 2 reactors coming online next year, and the new governor will be able to actually say, we're going to lower your rates. Now, it turns out we can lower your rates. We're going to fire everybody at the BPU. They're a disaster. Bunch of bureaucrats who don't represent the ratepayers. They represent big corporate. We're done with that. But the difference is I've actually met with PSE&G, JCP&L, Atlantic City Electric. We've talked about how we have these combined cycle plants that harness natural gas and turn it into electricity, but we're underusing them. Why? Because the governor's focused on wind and solar. knowing you can't power the grid. We're suffering under rates that have gone up 30% in the past couple of years. Going to go up another 20%. Your family bill is going higher and higher and higher, and the politicians don't care. My opponent, Jack Chinarelli, is owned by a lobbying company called Princeton Public Affairs. Two nefarious characters, Al Gabora and Dale Florio. And do you know who they represent? Vineyard, which is a big wind company building turbines off the coast of New Jersey. Now, how are you going to stand there and take a picture at the nuclear power plant and pretend that you are going to lower my rates when you are owned by the lobbying firms that represent the same corrupt companies that are taking our money? Can't have it both ways. We need to send in a Marine to change this state. We need to empower our nurses, our moms and dads, our firefighters, our cops. And don't believe them when they tell you I'm going to take away the pensions. That's another Chinarelli lie. It's a lie. You know what I did say? I said we can't spend $7 billion a year for state and teacher pensions knowing it's going to be bankrupt in 9 years, maybe 7. What we ought to do is fix it so we can protect our retirees, and I'm going to fix it. And there's a model out there. It's called Act 10 from Wisconsin, where we're going to change all the new hires coming in to a defined contribution instead of a defined benefit. And let me tell you another thing. We're going to restore the cost of living adjustment for our firefighters and our cops. We're going to do that on day 1. And my opponent talks about doing it because he heard me talk about it on the radio a few years ago. But the reality is, for those of you worried about how much we're spending $60 billion a year. You know what the cost of restoring COLA for firefighters and cops is? $85 million. You can't find $85 million. I'll find it right when we end the sanctuary state. And we'll pull $100 million right out of the illegals and pay for our cops and our firefighters. And every cop and firefighter that we keep in New Jersey is someone that's paying into our economy. That's how we grow it. We've got to invest in New Jerseyans. We got to invest in the people that make our communities great. You deserve a governor who represents you, who speaks for you, not the lobbyists, not the law firms, not the connected politicians who are so corrupt at both sides, have wrecked our state in the last 30 years. I am a different kind of Republican. I am a common sense, pro-Trump, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-military, pro-teacher Republican who is ready to lead this state for the next few years and make it work for all of us. God bless you all. Thank you for having me. All right. Now, I understand we're going to take some questions. I've got some hands. Do we have a mic? Zach, do you have a hand mic? No, I have a mic. All right, Zach is going to come out. Just yell it. Wait, I didn't hear that. I heard the anchor program.
It's worse now. It's because
Yeah.
the bureaucracy has
Yeah.
made a trend.
So you're talking about tax rebates for seniors. You're talking about tax rebates for average homeowners who are suffering. Here's how the anchor program works. $2 billion are put into the anchor program for tax rebates on homeowners. Do you know what the average rebate is? $700. Do you know what the average real estate tax bill is? $10,000. They tried a gimmick called Stay NJ. You've heard of it. Stay NJ was this political concoction that they came up with, and they punted, and it won't take effect till next year. Now, why'd they do that? Because they know we can't afford it. It's going to cost us $2 billion. Stay NJ was very simple. They said, if you're paying $10,000 in real estate taxes, we're going to give you $5,000 back. So I raised my hand. I said, well, that sounds pretty good. Where's the $5,000 coming from? Does the town still get 10? And they said, oh yeah, town still gets 10. So that means you're creating another 5,000? Who's paying for that? Everybody who isn't 65 and older. So again, the assault on the working and middle class. You pay more taxes. And let me tell you something. If you're a cop or a firefighter or a teacher and you retire before you're 65, you're not waiting around for that check, paying $10,000 a year. We need to protect people in their prime income times. We need to keep people here who are empty nesters. We need to lower taxes starting at 55. And I'll tell you how we're going to do it. You know what the big cost is in your real estate taxes? Schools. In this county, you're probably paying 60% on average, right? Mercer County, we're paying 65, 70, thank you. So we're paying between 52 and 70% of our real estate tax bill on education. And billions of dollars are going to schools that the kids can't read or do math. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're making the administrators at the NJEA rich. You know, I'm a pro-union Republican, all right? I support the unions. I support the trades. I support our firefighters and cops and their unions. I will tell you this, the NJEA is not a union. A union represents their people. The NJEA was nowhere when teachers were being fired for not taking the jab. You know, my opponent, Jack, supported the forced jab on the teachers, supported, still does, the twice-a-week testing you had to go through. I've made a commitment. I said every single teacher that lost their job or lost any pay at any time during COVID will be reinstated with back pay. Period. End of sentence. But as far as staying J, we got to scrap it. We can't afford that. What we need to do is take the real estate tax bill and separate it. I'm going to do this by executive order. Separate out the education portion. And then tell homeowners what percentage of your taxes are staying local, what percentage are going out. What percent of your income taxes are staying, what percentage are going out. How much are you actually paying for Newark and Camden and all these places? Now, how do you do it? We got to lower the cost. So I'm going to tell you this. Charter schools educate a child for 2/3 of the cost of a public school. The average cost in New Jersey is about $23,000 a student in a public school. Average charter school cost $13,000. So what I'm going to do on day one to lower your taxes is I'm going to take over the Board of Ed in Newark. There are 28,000 children in Newark that go to the public school. 4,000 are on a list to get into a charter school. But Ross Baraka won't let them. The governor won't let them. I'm going to take over that Board of Ed, and I'm going to take those 4,000 kids and take them out of the failed public school and get them into a charter school. And we're going to, by doing that in every city across the state, we're going to start to lower the cost of education per student. And we're going to take the money that we save, and we're going to give it back to the towns to go back for a tax credit, direct money to you, the payers, starting at age 55. And by the time you are 70, we're going to zero out the education portion of your taxes. That's how we're going to do it. That's a practical way of getting our taxes down. And I'll tell you another thing. Once we start creating more jobs and creating new revenue, we start making tractor parts in New Jersey, we're going to lower the cost of running that farm. We're going to lower the cost of our vehicles. I'm going to end this ridiculous electric vehicle mandate on day one. That's gone. You ought to decide what you drive. All of those things combined are going to start to lower the cost of living. We're going to get your energy costs down. After I fire everybody on the BPU, we're going to open up. When we do energy in New Jersey, just so you know, not to bore you with numbers, but I want you to know that I know the detail. Because you should call out any politician that lives in sound bites. There are a lot of little sound bites and little bullet points on flyers attacking me. But dig a little deeper and you'll find out my opponent has no idea what he's talking about. No idea. We use, at peak day, hot, humid, August day, New Jersey uses about 17,000 megawatts of energy. A combined cycle natural gas plant produces between 1,000 and 1,300. It takes about 3 years to build one. We're going to start on day one, not just building new ones, but we're going to take the ones that are already here, which are not used to fill the grid every day. They're used as what we call peaker plants, and that means when the energy spikes, we turn them on. Well, why aren't we turning them on every single day and creating jobs and building more plants and energy efficient production in New Jersey? We ought to be selling our surplus energy to the blue states that are suffering under this climate change tyranny, which is based on lies, by the way. You know, the climate's always changing. Ever since there was a climate. But it was warmer 1,500 years ago. But they tell you it's your fault because of your tractors and your cows. The cows? I mean, come on. They want us eating bugs? Enough. Anyway, long answer to that question. I'll take another one. Hey, look, if you want me to shut up, just say traffic and weather. And I go right to break. Old habits die hard. Yes, sir. So, if I don't follow through, yeah, well, my wife's accountable. She's going to tell me, make sure I'm doing the right job. Let me tell you. Let me answer that question, because politicians are liars, right? So first thing is, I'm a father, I'm an American, I'm a Marine, I'm a husband, I'm not a politician. All right? That's number one. That's why I'm running. Number two, every executive running for office will tell you, here's what I'm going to do in the first 100 days, right? We hear about this, right? And what do they do in the first 100 days? Nothing. Why? Because they put it all on the legislature. Even my opponent, Jack, is saying, we're going to have a Republican legislature. Don't worry, it'll get done. And I said, Jack, either you're lying or you're stupid. I'm not sure. Maybe a combination. The Senate is not up for election this year. We actually cannot have a Republican majority in the legislature in 2025. So I am saying to you, I'm going to ignore the legislature. I'm going to hold myself accountable. By not going to the legislature in the first 100 days, we're going to sign 100 executive orders in the first 100 days. And we're going to roll back the regulations on insurance, on road construction, on farms. I want to change the way we do business on our farms. Raw milk should be legal, period, end of sentence. We need to strike down the commercial washing regulations for eggs so that family farms can sell their eggs. We have a surplus of eggs and all these farms give them away. Why aren't you charging for them? You should be. And by the way, an egg belongs on the counter, not in the fridge. So we have way too many regulations. So I'm going to change all of them that are administrative. I'll give you another example. The Second Amendment. Any carry permits here? I bet we got a couple, right? So what has Governor Murphy done with the carry permits? He is restricting everywhere that you can carry. But those are not statutory laws that came from the legislature. These are administrative regulations, and we're going to roll them all back. All of them. You know why? They're not making our state any safer. Next question. Yes, sir.
Why can't I carry while taking my kid to school?
You should be.
Yeah.
When I'm governor, you're going to be able to.
We're going to remove all
We
laws.
need more dads carrying firearms to protect our children.
Hell yeah.
You know what? They're soft targets because we disarm the good guys. That's what has to change. I'd like to take it a step further. Who saw that Instagram post it was in Texas, truck driver rolls up with his rig, and there's a cop rapping on the window, excuse me, sir, just asking if you're armed. And the truck driver visibly got a little nervous because he's like, ah, crap, if I'm in Jersey, that's a bad question. I could be in a lot of trouble. And the cop stops and said, no, I'm asking because I'm hoping you are, because this is considered your domicile while you're parked at this rest stop, and you can use deadly force to protect it. That's what we need in New Jersey. We ought to be able to protect our home. But I will tell you, I don't want to see the need for every person to say, I've got to have a loaded gun by my bed every night. I'd rather end bail reform and keep the bad guys in jail. How about that? That's what we need to do. All right, next question. Yes, ma'am. Yes. With the Trump visor, I love it. Like you're counting money.
So I want to know, we have so many empty warehouses. How
Yeah.
are you going to stop this?
The warehouses drive me crazy. So the first thing we've got to do is we have to lower the threshold for a farmland assessment. That's the first thing we have to do. The stupid Republicans are trying to raise it now. And what that's going to do is put more farms out of business. Second thing is we have to end high density housing, because what's happening is you've got too many of these farms that can't make a living. You can't make, it's hard, I should say you can't, but it's very hard to make a living as a farmer in New Jersey. The rules are stacked against you. So the easy way is to sell out to the warehouse sales. I would like to work with the counties and find out. I was in Salem County, maybe it was Cumberland, a couple of months ago. and I asked the farmers about their acreage and how much of their acreage could they actually grow on and how much was sand and worthless. And they're like, well, you know, maybe it's 20% that we're not going to really use, but we own it. I said, okay, that's where I'd put a warehouse. We need to reopen our open space and make sure that we are rebuilding our agricultural industry in this state. Because these warehouses right now, I'd like to see a lot of them torn down. And when we start building things in New Jersey, we're not going to need them. So look, we tear down old homes, right? You get a home that needs to be raised because it's too old, it's infested, it's got to go. They're knocked out. I see the same thing with these warehouses. Now, on the other side, I like the idea of warehouses that are producing ratables for our towns. The challenge is, in a lot of cases, they've been given a lot of tax credits that it's not working for the town. That's the problem. And then you've got the increased traffic. There's so many costs that go in. I would like to slow the roll and enforce the current rules that we have in place for zoning and make sure that we are leaning hard on these towns to not open up the zoning to allow warehouse after warehouse after warehouse. But it is mostly a positive solution. When we invest in our farms, when we increase agriculture, I want to bring back agriculture studies in our high schools. I'd like to combine some of our areas where we're actually teaching kids. When I went to school, there was wood shop, metal shop. I had home ec. Remember home ec? What happened? It all went away, and they're teaching pronouns and propaganda now. It's all changed. So the warehouse problem of the warehouse that's standing there, that's a local issue that I think the state government can help with. But the first priority is to stop it in its progress now. And the way we do that, we end high-density housing, and I have 5 executive orders that we've already written to stop high-density housing from encroaching on all of these beautiful lands out here. Number 2, we need to enforce local zoning and stop. What's happening is a lot of towns are overriding their own rules because they're seeing the money. Honestly, I would rather see the state buy that up. We have an open space program. I'd rather see the state come in and say, we'll buy it up, not to leave it empty, but to create a farm. Why aren't we buying that space, creating a farm, and using that to teach our kids in public school agriculture? There are a million things we can do, and I want to lead the way to stop it. Yes, sir.
How do we get rid of the Mount Laurel project for good?
Yeah, it's got to go, right?
Destroying.
Well, look, I love a good lawsuit. I've been sued so many times, you can think about it, right? My opponents have sued me. They went after me legally because I stayed on the air after I announced. And you know, a funny thing happened. I won the case on the First Amendment. So it does still exist in New Jersey, believe it or not. So what are we going to do about it? First thing I'm going to do, day 1. Now, you're all invited to the inauguration. I'm going to tell you, the inauguration happens at noon on January 20th, 2026. Now, after I give a speech, which I'm telling you, it could be like 2 hours, so just get ready for it. I'm going to start signing executive orders. You know who's doing a good job with executive orders? President Donald Trump. He's not waiting for the legislature, the Congress. He's not waiting for the do-nothings. But what's happening? They're suing him left and right. So the only way to get rid of Mount Laurel is to act. And we're going to act by executive order. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to redefine what a housing unit is. We're going to include jail cells, hotel rooms, long-term recovery beds, hospital beds. Anywhere you can put a cot and a pillow is going to count as a low-income housing, high-density unit. We think we can lower the number by 30%. I'm going to take all the units in all the suburbs and all the rural communities, and I'm going to stick them into the cities. Because right now what's happening is these greedy developers are making money hand over fist. They don't want Mount Laurel to go away. They're getting rich off Mount Laurel. And when your town is too slow to build, what happens? They sue and they make money. Well, we got a solution for that. As the old saying goes, we got an app for that. I've got an executive order for that. We are going to take the builder's escrow and we're going to use that money to give to our cities to offset the higher cost of infrastructure when we shove all those units there. But remember, we're going to have a lot of vacant units when I start deporting people working with Tom Homan, because there are hundreds of thousands of illegals living in these units. They're all gone. What are we going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to bring back manufacturing. We're going to bring back the small family shops, the entrepreneurs, the retailers, all those jobs that went away over the past 30 years, we're going to bring back to New Jersey. And when we bring them back, I'm going to have a rule for these companies. You're going to get a tax break for 10 years of your corporate taxes. But you're going to hire 80% local and 100% legal. And we're going to have a house for them, and they're going to be in the cities where they have the water infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, the fire, the police, and then I'm going to get sued. And we're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court, and we're going to win. My lawyers are super confident that my 5 executive orders to stop phase 4 are going to be bulletproof. Now, it's going to be a fight, and I hope the fight lasts for 2 years. I'll tell you why. Because we're going to show how school choice, where your money follows your child, works. We're going to prove it by executive order in our cities. Then we're going to show how ending high-density housing has helped property value in our suburbs and our rural communities, and how it's working to create jobs because there's a place to live now in the cities. When we show all that, I'm going to be the loudest guy yelling about those running for the Assembly and the Senate in 2027. And we're going to make sure that one of the first things on the docket is a law to change and reverse the Mount Laurel decisions. Once we win that fight, my goal and my legacy, I hope, is that Mount Laurel is gone forever. But it didn't help anybody. It didn't help the people it was intended to help. It's not low-income housing. It's subsidized government housing for illegals. That's what it has become. And you ask your sons and daughters, your grandkids, how hard it is to even rent a place in New Jersey within reason to your job. Can't do it. Anyway, I'm on it. Next question. Yes, young man. Wait, hold on. I'm going to get your microphone. Here it comes. It's got the right shirt on.
Have good school grades.
How were my school grades? Oh.
Have school grades. No, good grades.
About good, you want to know, how are your grades? Pretty good? Yeah? Well, we ought to reward kids for having good grades. Right? I think that there's a future leader right here. Keep studying, but it's not just the grades. It's how well you get along with your brothers and sisters. It's how much you listen to mom and dad. I'm sure you don't get in any trouble at all. That's okay. I used to get in trouble a lot as a kid. It's all good. Yes, ma'am.
How are you going to get rid of these wind turbines that are not?
Oh, all right. The wind turbines are done on day 1. And I'm going to tell you how. Because the hard work was already done by President Trump and Congressman Jeff Van Drew. Jeff Van Drew wrote the executive order, Donald Trump signed it, and it ended. Now, what am I going to do? Very simple. I'm going to take out my red Sharpie. Now, I have my black Sharpie here to sign the hate map. But it will turn into a red Sharpie so that I can use the line item veto and end all the subsidies to wind and solar. And I'm going to be honest, it's not about the whales. Now, I don't mean to be, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to yell that later for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you had come to me and said, listen, here's the deal. We got a plan for sustained, affordable, clean, abundant energy. But every year, we got to sacrifice 100 whales. I would say, maybe. But that's not what's happening. They're killing the whales. They're killing the sharks. They're killing the dolphins. They're killing our charter fishing companies. They're killing our property value. They're using eminent domain to dig up our land. They're killing us. And you know what the worst part is? Wind is a garbage source of energy. It is what, look at Germany. Look at all the countries. Look at California. The worst way to produce electricity is wind and solar. We're going to bring back, wait for it, common sense, and maybe a little science, and school these radical lunatics who think that you're going to save the planet by ruining the planet. Think about it. We're putting a 1,000-foot turbine that uses, by the way, oil to lubricate the gearboxes, not to mention the thousands of gallons of diesel in the boats that go out to service them, not to mention they don't know what to do with the blades, and they only last 10 to 20 years. Oh, and by the way, the wind doesn't blow all the time. So you don't have a sustained form of energy. Wind and solar are the worst. We're going to invest in those nuclear plants, and I'll tell you why. It's not going to lower your rates today, but it is going to create energy independence down the road for our kids and grandkids. And I feel an obligation. If I really want to be a grandparent in this state, and I do, and God willing, a great-grandparent, I want to make sure that my kids say, wow, look at New Jersey. Energy's cheap and abundant. My insurance costs are lower. My real estate taxes are lower. Income opportunity is there. Housing is reasonable. Think about that. Wow, New Jersey, a government that actually stands up and fights for the people. Wouldn't that be amazing? So that's what we're going to get. So they end on day one. Wait, you already asked a question right behind you. Yes. Yes.
Does the governor have power to do that in the municipalities with councils?
So the way the governor has power and connect, it's a good question. As far as how do you push the municipalities? Well, the way you push the municipalities is you withhold state aid. So I will tell you this, any school that violates President Trump's executive order about making sure that it's only men and boys in boys and men's spaces, and only girls and women in girls' spaces, they're not going to get a dime from the state. So we're going to use the power of the executive with that red Sharpie and say, you don't want to go and raise taxes to support some radical, crazy agenda. So we're going to stop it. And it won't be that hard. You know, guys, look what happened during COVID. How many people just fell in line and did what they were told? This is really a crisis of leadership. We haven't had strong enough Republicans to lead the way. You know, when they said that ending DEI was racist, I said, what are you, crazy? I said this to the African American Chamber of Commerce. I was invited to speak. Got booed there too. And it was a shame because I was speaking truth. And they tried to call me out at it. They said, well, you know, Mr. SPADEA, have you read the disparity study that shows that there's a gap between black and brown owned businesses and white owned businesses? I said, yes, I read the disparity study. It goes back to 2015, and it's gotten worse. I said, but I'll do you one better. I read the other one from 2005 to 2015. I said, so you're telling me we have a woke DEI promoting governor who's been in power for 2 terms, and the disparity is getting worse. Your DEI nonsense is not empowering anybody. It's empowering lawyers to take lawsuits and hurt good companies. That's what's happening. We need to get into our cities and fix them. We need to get the housing. My God, the kids in Newark are drinking water that's got lead in it. You know, they tried to tell us that climate change caused the last drought. You heard this? Right? We've gone, by the way, 6 weeks without rain before. The real hardship is the farming community. They're the ones that suffer when there's a drought. But the woke liberals think that they suffer in academia when that happens. And I said, well, haven't we gone 6 weeks without rain before? And they said, sure. Actually, we've gone a lot longer without rain in a real drought. So, well, what's the big problem? So I met with New Jersey American Water, and here's what I learned. We are losing 20 to 30% of the water coming from the reservoirs into our towns. You know why? In some areas, we still have wooden pipes carrying the water. They haven't serviced the pipes or replaced them, in some cases, in 80 years. So the point is that we have a crisis in this state. The lawyers and the lobbyists and the politicians are getting rich. My opponent's been running for governor for 9 years, spent $25 million. You know that 2/3 of that money came from you. Because there's a matching fund program. Every dollar you raise, they give you $2. So you've been subsidizing a professional candidate for governor whose only campaign is to hate on me. Think about that. He lost twice already, right? So yes, we're going to solve that. Next. Yes, sir.
What would you do for the chemtrails? Would you pass a ban on that?
All right, I love this question. Now, I'm going to put this in context. The question is, what would you do about the chemtrails? All right, now, I'm gonna come clean. We're all friends, right? If you would ask me that question 5 years ago, I would have said, where's the tinfoil hat? You ask me now, we're gonna ban it, is what we're gonna do. We're gonna ban it over New Jersey skies because I asked this question. I don't know from chemtrails or contrails or what the hell's going on in the sky. I don't know. But I see it.
It's there.
I see it. And then I saw a news article a couple of years ago that Dubai, which is a city in the desert, had a flood. And they said, well, we overseeded the clouds. I said, you did what? That was real? I felt like an idiot. I'm like, that's really happening. So we're going to end this now. What is this? I asked this 2 years ago, if you noticed, New Hampshire and Tennessee banned chemtrails. So if they all acted to ban it, well, they obviously banned something that was real. So yeah, we're going to end that on day one. Wow. How bad is that? What the hell? I want to follow also on things to ban. We got to step up what RFK is doing with Make America Healthy Again. Right? How about we source our food for our schools from our local farms? How about we stop buying this processed garbage coming from all over the world? Enough already. No, we're not feeding our kids bugs. We're not doing it. Got plenty of great food right here in South Jersey. We could feed the entire state just on what we grow in South Jersey, but we got to make it easier to own a farm. We got to expand our farms. We got to invest in agriculture. We've got a lot of work to do. Got a lot of work to do, but we're going to start with the big ones. Yes, Jack. The good Jack.
4 years of a successful term. Are you open to a second term as governor?
So that question probably comes from my comments at the debate, which I got in trouble with all my consultants and managers. I said, what the hell did you just say? I said, I am committing to serving one term. I didn't say only, but here's why I said it. The answer is, of course, but it's important to note that I'm going to put a lot on the line in the first 100 days because I won't have the legislature to blame. I won't have the courts to blame. I'm going to start signing executive orders and acting in a way that I believe will make the lives of New Jerseyans better. We're going to restore your constitutional liberties. We're going to restore your parental rights. We're going to end illegal immigration. We're going to change the rules of engagement for our cops. We're going to stand up for qualified immunity. I'm going to end bail reform, end illegal immigration. We're going to cut through all the red tape on our road construction. We're going to start to give out the incentives so that we can change our school system. I'm going to fire 8 of the 13 members of the State Board of Ed because all 8 have an expired term. They're all gone. And we're going to put in parents who support school choice, period. But if it all goes well, I'll leave that to the voters of New Jersey before I would commit to anything, because I don't believe you should be running for office for yourself. Just to share a personal story, I don't know if you know Johnny Tobacco. He's a guy on Newsmax, right? You know him? The Wise Guys show. So I'm on this Saturday, and we taped the interview earlier, and he said, man, what are you doing? Why are you running for governor? You know you had a show lined up on Newsmax. You had the most successful radio show in the region. I mean, 1.5 million listeners. I was half the company revenue. I said, Johnny, I know. I've worked it out with Chris Ruddy. He's a friend of mine. And when I told him they were building a studio in my house, and I found out that China Jack was getting the support of all these establishment Republicans. The chairman here in Burlington County loves Jack. The chairman in Atlantic County. These guys are all backroom bums. They don't work for a living. They don't know what's happening in the real world. And I said, look, I gave up a very lucrative career for this reason. Jody and I talked about this. I said, we could retire in 4 years, but not in Jersey, because unless we fix it, it's A, unaffordable as a retiree, getting worse. B, how am I going to expect my kids to raise my grandkids in a state that shows pornography to grade schoolers? That is unacceptable. And you know the old saying, you want something done, sometimes you got to do it yourself. So really, I just got sick and tired and a little pissed off. I said, that's it. And I told the station I was leaving, and I announced, and I will tell you this, for those of you who are upset because you have received 9,000 pieces of mail and I look uglier in each one of them. I love the one with the Boston hat. That's great. By the way, Jody's from Rhode Island, so I married a Red Sox fan. Don't hold that against me. Look, happy marriage, right? Sometimes you got to root for the Red Sox. But the point is that you're getting all this onslaught. None of it is about what my opponents are going to do for businesses, families, teachers, cops. It's all about hating me. So think about a guy that's running for the third time, has limitless money. He's got more money than I do. And all he's doing is spending it to try to kill me. What does that tell you?
He's a con artist.
Who's he afraid of? Is he afraid of me or is he afraid of you? I think he's afraid of us. Because it is us versus them. And I'm sick and tired of them. The lawyers, the lobbyists, the traders, the Goldman Sachs guys, all these rich fat cats who have nannies raising their kids. They're in a different world than we are, aren't they? They don't understand what it is to drive over a pothole and blow out 2 tires and have to spend $800 to get the car fixed. They don't understand that. They don't understand the elderly woman who is making a choice between medicine and dog food for her pet because there isn't enough Medicaid money because they're spending billions on illegals. Do they not understand or do they not care? Maybe it's both. But either way, it's got to be fixed. And you've got my commitment. I'm going to fight like hell. I love this state. I love this country. I love my family. I love our communities. And I know that it takes sacrifice on behalf of our farmers that give us the food, our cops that keep our streets safe, our firefighters who run into burning buildings and not away, our teachers who spend the time dealing with everybody else's kid, don't know how you do it, our nurses who save lives. All of these people make up our community. And our community is under assault because they think they can take away our rights and get away with it. And for 30 years, they've gotten away with it. And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat when it comes down to it, because I don't think Chris Christie did us any favors. No. I don't think Christine Todd Whitman did us any favors. No. I know that John Corzine didn't do us any favors. And God only knows what goes on in the mind of Phil Murphy. But that's a man willing to sacrifice you, your family, your children. 10,000 seniors died during COVID, 10,000. Meanwhile, the rest of the country was opening up. The states that didn't close down fully had the lowest mortality rate. We were cheated. My father-in-law passed away during COVID, not from COVID. And I have a picture of my kids saying goodbye to their grandfather through an outside glass window. That is a crime, what they did to us. And then you're telling me that they're going to force you to take a shot that now we know was a poison jab? They're going to force you, if you don't submit to their tyranny, to test twice a week? And I'm going to tell you guys, part of this is personal. When I look at my opponent, whether you call him China Jack or Chinarelli, whatever it is, this is a man who in 2017 ran against Chris Christie's lieutenant governor in the primary and got killed. And Christie was at 13%. Then he ran in 2021 and he hated on Trump. Told Trump to stay away. You're a charlatan. I'm embarrassed by you. Stay out. Then in 2024, when my wife Jody and I were backstage in Wildwood with the president having a normal conversation, after I had him on the air a couple times, Chinarelli's out on the boardwalk hoping somebody will recognize him. And then he looked at the polls and said, well, I guess I got to be pro-Trump. You can't trust that guy. You can't trust someone who will say anything for a vote. I will tell you the truth. I will tell you the truth about Stay NJ. I'll tell you the truth about high-density housing. I'll tell you the truth about restoring COLA, end our pensions, and how we're going to fix our government. And I am running to do the job. I'm not running to use it as a resume pad. I'm certainly not doing it for the money. Because I walked away from a very lucrative career, but it's time. It's time to have a man of courage and integrity and principles, a man that's not afraid to tell you he's pro-life, that every child is sacred,
A man that's not afraid to tell you that he goes to Mass every Sunday. I'm a man of faith. I'm a family man. And I'm going to tell you, it's time we bring New Jersey back to normal. We're the normals. It's about us. It's about us. It's about you and me and all of us. So thank you. I have time for a couple more. Right? I don't know who's keeping time. Someone yell at me when I need to shut up. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just a few miles up the road is Ward State Forest. The DEP took it upon themselves to close hundreds of miles of road. Yep. What can you do as governor to open them back to
Well, God willing, Sean LaTourette will stay on long enough for me to send him a text to tell him you're fired. What a bum. What a bum. What a bad guy. Had no reason to close that forest. We are going to open Wharton Forest on day one. Do you know, I learned how to drive in Wharton Forest. My dad had a stick shift Jeep that I learned in the old gravel pits near Baxter, right? I mean, we got to open it up. How about the 10,000 hunters and fishermen that didn't get their licenses renewed because of the incompetent DEP? We're going to fire everybody at the DEP, and we're going to end this absurdity and give the land back to the people. Day one. Yes, sir.
Going back to the Second Amendment, what are your thoughts on bringing New Jersey back to the standard capacity?
Oh, the magazine capacity? If I could wave a wand, there should not be a limit on capacity. It makes no sense. Magazine capacity limits don't keep people safe. I mean, you look at all these ridiculous things that happen. Look at what happens with the mass shootings and all that. They're all soft targets. People are unarmed. And let me tell you another thing. They're blaming the gun. They ought to be blaming the pharmaceuticals and the mental illness and the abuse of opioids. Because you look at almost every one of these school shooters, they've got some massive medical, psychological, psychotic problem that led them there. It ain't the gun. So the other thing I want to do, you know, the flash suppressor rule is a sticking point with me. Because the fact that they base a rule on whether you can stick your pinky into the barrel of the gun, and if it fits, it's illegal. What the hell kind of rule is that? I don't even understand that rule. My son and I built an AR-15. And I built it, and I learned I ordered the wrong stock. It was adjustable. You know why? You know why I know, right? You know why they have adjustable stocks? Because we're not all the same size. That's why. You should have an adjustable stock is actually safer, but not in Jersey. So I had to go to my guy and drill a hole in a perfectly good firearm to put a pin in so I don't do 3 to 5 when they find it. I mean, come on, it's so stupid. So let me tell you this though, good news. I am the only candidate that's met with the NRA. I'm the only candidate that has an A rating with the NRA. And I'm the only candidate that when I ran for Congress 100 years ago, 20 years ago, ran for Congress in a liberal district, 3-1 Democrat. No Republican wanted it. And at Labor Day, I was at 20% in the polls. And I was working for Jim Weichert at the time, doing real estate, and I decided that this was a good idea, so I ran. And on Labor Day, we polled 20%. I went to Jim and I said, Jim, I need to take some time off because I'm already this far in. So I took 5 weeks of leave and I knocked on 16,000 doors, walked 200 miles to 44 towns in the district, and in 5 weeks went from 20% to 40%. Now, why do I tell you that? Because during that race, one of the only groups that gave me money was the NRA. So I'm with you on all of those issues, and you will have a champion of the Second Amendment in the governor's name. Yes, sir.
Hello, Bill. Real quick. So you talked earlier, you passed through a little bit about, things about, we're talking about tinfoil hats, eating the bugs. You know, the WEF is going
It's all
out
real.
there. Yeah, they're going out there and they're talking about population control and killing half the population and stuff like that. My question to you is this. Back in 2017, New Jersey was the first state in the union to label Antifa as a terrorist organization. Will you label the WEF as a terrorist organization in the state of the New Jersey?
I love that. I think you are 100% right. Look, I don't know what capacity the governor has to do that, but I will tell you, we're done with these international actors coming in, poisoning our food, poisoning our schools, wrecking our communities. It's enough. It's because of these bad actors and the funding of the bad actors like George Soros that we have to fight to protect our cops in our communities. I will tell you, for every officer out there, you're going to have a champion in the governor's office. For every firefighter, for every teacher, for every nurse. I'll tell you, I was the only Republican, the only one that walked with the nurses on strike at Robert Wood Johnson. And you know why I did that? Because they weren't striking for more pay. They were striking to have better staffing ratios because patients were dying. And these big fat cat companies that are a big part of the problem because of how many bad politicians they fund, they sit back and they don't care that your father, your mother, your daughter, your son has to sit on a gurney screaming in pain in a hallway because we don't have enough nurses. They don't care about that. You know what their solution is? They lower the standards. That's not a solution. How about we restore cost of living adjustment? How about we allow nurses to move from other states without having to take basic training again? How about we pay them more? How about we go after the fat cats sitting behind their executive mansions and say it's time to restore power to the people? How about we completely ignore the international nonsense trying to dictate what we do in New Jersey? We're done with all that. We're going to be independent with our food. We're going to be independent with our energy. We're going to be independent when it comes to our law enforcement. And we're going to partner with the federal government to make sure that we use their power while Trump is in the White House to help us fix the problems here. Yes, sir. Last question.
A lot of our streams and water infrastructure is bad shape around.
Yep.
Bad drainage. We've had towns thrown out because of it.
He's talking about flooding. I can't believe that that's the question. I almost feel like Jody gave you $20. Here's why. I get in trouble. Now listen, I live in a different world now with this whole political thing, and I got a lot of consultants, and I like to talk about flood mitigation. And you know what they tell me? Bill, it doesn't poll well. Nobody really cares about that. I don't care how it polls. Let me tell you how I feel. So I spent days and hours with towns in Morris County and Bergen County and Middlesex County, because every time it rains an inch, the South River, the Saddlebrook River, the Whippany River, they flood. And you know what the crazy liberals say? Climate change. Climate change. I'm driving an SUV, it's my fault. Let me tell you what the real problem is. Most of our storm drains are 95% clogged. That's number one. Haven't been tended to in 5 decades. Number two, the DEP will not let us dredge or desnag our rivers because they want to protect some little weird species of frog. I say to hell with the weird species of frog. Dredge the damn river. The Whippany River in Morris County used to run at 7 feet deep. You know what didn't happen? Florham Park didn't flood when it ran at 7 feet. You know what it's running at now? 18 inches. You know what happens when it rains? The towns flood. So I am all over it, to the point where I've sat through these meetings, I met with Collier's Engineering, and I am going to put members of flood mitigation task forces on the DEP. We are going to have a Department of Environmental Protection that protects the humans who are living in this environment. The environment is for us. It's for us, not for the frogs. Now, we'll protect the frogs as much as we can because we all want clean water and clean air. But the fluoride's got to go, right? Who knew how bad that was? Everybody, except they lied to us, didn't they? They lied to us. I'm done with the lies. It's enough. We're going to have as transparent a government as you've ever seen in New Jersey. But we are going to dredge those rivers. We are going to desnag them. I'll tell you a quick story. My friend Jamie Barbario is the mayor of Parsippany, largest town in Morris County, North Jersey. And there was a situation on the Whippany River about 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, where a huge tree fell into the river during a storm because they don't shore up the banks, they don't desnag, and they don't dredge. So the water's running high every time it rains, so it eroded the roots, tree falls. Well, what happens when a big tree falls across a river running at 18 inches? The water gets diverted. The beavers taught us that. Right? You put the tree down, the water goes somewhere. Well, what happened? The town started to flood. So his own Department of Public Works said, Mayor, we're going to do something about this. This is a crisis, and it's happening in real time. So in real time, they brought out the big rig, and they dragged the tree out of the river. Water starts flowing again, and everybody's happy. 2 weeks later, the Department of Environmental Protection issued a $100,000 fine on that town because they violated the wetlands by driving a diesel rig over the banks of the river. That kind of garbage ends on day one. It's all going to be thrown out. It's enough. Guys, look, they tell me I got to wrap, so I want to just tell you this to end on this. I'm a real person who listens. I'm not a politician. For those of you that I was with you on your ride to work, your ride to school, your ride in the morning. I was talking to you and making friendships and bonds that were real. And everywhere I go, I meet people who I help wake up in the morning. Sometimes they tell me they showered with me. That's a little weird, but I understand. But the point is that you know who I am. You know what I stand for. You know that 10 years of history with all of you can't be undone by even $5 million from my lying opponent. Don't let the guy who supports men and women's bathrooms, who makes money off of China buying our farmland, who supports illegals getting driver's licenses and taxpayer subsidies, who has voted at least 3 times to raise our taxes, who supported Murphy's mandates. Don't let that guy steal our party. We need a strong Republican Party to take on the woke Democrats and restore common sense, and I am the leader to do it. I humbly ask for your support, your vote, and your prayers. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Act, which allows what the
our municipality
boards,
is governed under the Faulkner Act.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
it actually allows them to govern independently. So what it needs to be done, we need to expand it to other towns. We need to empower towns to govern themselves. However, we have to make sure we protect the people in the towns so that their rights are protected by a strong state. There's nothing wrong with a strong state government that protects the constitutional liberties of everybody in the town.
Right.
But that's how we're going to get school choice.
Unfortunately, our town has an issue with it because our town council can't control our mayor. He's gone rogue, and they've condemned him. They've held public hearings.
There's no impeachment clause?
There's no impeachment. They can't do anything.
Really?
Nope.
So the answer is yes. Obviously, if there's an egregious act on the part of a politician who's rogue and corrupt, we're going to go after him. That's why we have the Attorney General's office to make sure this Attorney General doesn't do his job. This guy goes after our rights instead of protect our rights. I'm going to have an Attorney General who is an expert in the United States Constitution, who supports qualified immunity, who supports home rule and parental rights and medical choice. That's the Attorney General we're going to have, and we're going to be a watchdog over the towns across this state to make sure that rights are protected.
Thank you.
I have your Attorney General right here.
Hey, Mike, great to see you. How you doing? All right? Thanks for being here. Thank you. Thank you.